Her laugh barely faded before I felt the room shift. The joke she had tossed out, "He is only here for the free food," hung in the air like bad cologne you cannot wash off. I heard my dog Buddy's nails scrape the floor as he moved under the table. A few people laughed. One guy even leaned over and tried to slap me a high five. I left him hanging and smiled instead, the same practice smile I had used 100 times before. I knew that joke. I had lived inside that joke. Same tone, same grin, same friendly shove afterward, followed by, "Relax, it is just a joke." Then a man in a black suit stepped up beside me. He was older, hair slicked back neat as glass, wearing pressed linen like he owned the place. His name was Michael. I had known him for over 10 years. "Mr. Carter," he said, dipping his head just slightly. His accent always made my name sound like it cost money. "Your usual table is ready. Would you like me to move you?" You could have heard a grain of rice hit the floor. My wife froze. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Her eyes scanned the table, searching for an explanation from anyone. Someone. Anyone. "Your usual table?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but her voice was thin and tight, like a cracked wine glass right before it breaks. Michael looked at her for half a second, then back to me. "It is prepared either way, sir." I tilted my head. "We will stay here for now. Thank you." He nodded and walked away, leaving behind silence and the faint smell of truffle oil. That is when the questions started. Not from my wife. She was blinking like she had been slapped without being touched. It came from her new boss instead. The guy with perfect teeth and a wristwatch he checked every 2 minutes. "Hold on," he said slowly. Are you the Carter from the Donatelli renovation?" I took a sip of my wine before answering. "I was an early investor," I said calmly. "Helped out when things were rough. Michael and I go way back." I was not showing off. I was just tapping the glass and watching the crack spread. My wife's hand had gone completely still. Her smile stayed glued on, but her eyes panicked before her mouth caught up. She had always treated me like background noise. Easy listening. Reliable. Invisible. I was the guy who held the camera at company retreats. The man who dropped her off at charity galas and waited in the car. But that night, the music got louder. Her assistant leaned in, young and sharp, polished like he had been built in a lab. "I had no idea your husband worked with the Donatelli family." My wife did not answer. She lifted her wine glass like she wanted to crawl inside it and vanish. Someone asked how long I had known Michael. "About 11 years, I said. "Long enough to know what they do not list on the menu." Right on cue, the waiter came back. Not with the entree everyone else ordered, but with a plate of seared venison and black garlic risotto. "Chef's special," he said, setting it in front of me. "He said you would prefer this." One woman leaned toward me and whispered, "So you really do have a usual table." Another added quietly, "I thought that dish was discontinued last year." I did not respond. I just cut into the venison, slow and careful. My wife's boss watched me. Her junior manager watched her. And my wife, the woman who had spent years polishing her image, jumped back into conversation, asking someone about quarterly advertising spending like nothing had happened. It did not work. They were looking at her differently now. They were looking at me and wondering what else they did not know. The silence did not fade. It grew heavier. Someone tried to change the subject, muttering about ski trips or analytics dashboards, but nobody followed along. The shift had already happened. Eyes were no longer on her. Not the way they used to be. All that effort. The tailored jackets. The power walk. The subtle reminders about how she handled everything herself. It all started to look like a performance. Her boss, the same man who had raised a glass minutes earlier to toast real leadership, now glanced between us like he had just opened a confidential file nobody warned him about. He leaned closer, less smooth now. "So you helped save the Donatelli group after the fires?" "Partially," I said. "I brought in the right architects. Helped keep the doors open when others wanted to sell everything off." My wife finally spoke. "You never told me any of this." I shrugged. "You said you did not like hearing about my side projects. Said it bored you." She laughed too loud. Forced. "Well, now I am curious. What else do I not know?" I looked at her straight on. "How long is dinner?" A few people laughed. Not real laughter. The kind that slips out when nobody knows what to do. Her boss swirled his wine and studied her with new interest. And just like that, the story she had been telling about herself was no longer the only one in the room. "You never said your husband worked in hospitality at that level," her boss said, raising an eyebrow. She gave a tight smile that did not reach her eyes. "He does not." I mean, he puts money into things sometimes, but it is not really his world. He nodded, slow and thoughtful. Still impressive. My brother tried to buy into the Donatelli reopening. He said the inner circle was locked down. She inhaled, gearing up to redirect the conversation, but someone else jumped in first. Younger guy, sharp suit, eager eyes. Mr. Carter, he said, are you on the board for the nonprofit that handled the Little Italy restoration? I swear I saw your name in the annual report. I nodded once. Still am. My wife blinked hard. I could see the gears turning behind her eyes. She was replaying years of half-listened conversations, comments she brushed off, moments she labeled as me just messing around. In her version of reality, I was the guy who fixed the sink, made decent scrambled eggs, and bought gifts she quietly exchanged later. She never questioned why I always tipped the valet in cash. Never wondered why certain names landed heavy when I mentioned them. To her, I was household background noise, not someone meant to exist in her professional world. Anyway, she said suddenly, clapping her hands a little too loud. Has anyone seen the third quarter pitch deck me up put together? It is incredible. They played along. A few nods, a forced laugh, but no one leaned in. The balance at the table had shifted, and she felt it. She tried again, praising someone's campaign rollout. Polite acknowledgement. Nothing more. The energy was gone. The conversation kept drifting back toward me. How long had I known Michael? How much had I invested in Donatelli's recovery? Did I advise other restaurants? Each answer landed quietly but firmly, like a crack spreading through polished glass. She smiled through all of it, nodded, laughed at the right beats. I knew that smile well. It was the same one she wore when her assistant spilled espresso on her blouse 5 minutes before a board meeting. Bright, controlled, teeth clenched behind it. It really hit her when dessert arrived. They brought mine without asking. Again, a soft tiramisu topped with caramelized figs. Not listed anywhere on the menu. She stared at the plate, then at me. You come here that often? I wiped the spoon with a cloth napkin. Only when I want to be remembered. She never touched her dessert. There, in the restaurant where she thought she would rule the night, her crown disappeared. She was no longer the center. Just a woman sitting beside a man she never bothered to fully know. And the people she wanted to impress were starting to see it too. She was already kicking off her heels when she snapped. Why did you never tell me you owned part of that place? The words hit the wall before the front door finished closing. I walked past her into the kitchen, loosened my collar, and poured myself a bourbon. Not one of the bottles she kept on display. One from the cabinet she never opened. Small batch. Kentucky. A place she never visited, even though I asked her once. You never asked, I said, staring into the glass like it might explain things better than I could. She scoffed. Sharp and dramatic. That is manipulative. You sat there playing mysterious while I looked stupid in front of my boss. I turned toward her. No, I sat there as your husband. You just forgot who I was. She blinked, caught off guard by how calm I sounded. She expected a fight. She always did. That was our pattern. Push until I reacted, then accuse me of reacting too much. That is not fair, she said. Neither is rewriting a man in your head because he does not match your professional image. She crossed her arms, jacket sliding halfway off her shoulders. So what was it? A power move? Embarrass me in public? No, I said. That was just dinner. She paced, the way she always did when she lost control of the story. You should have told me. I did. Years ago. You just were not listening. You were busy explaining how networking mattered and how I should find something more visible. I paused, so I stayed quiet. Visibility never fit your brand. She flinched. Just a twitch. But I saw it. The truth was, I put money into Donatelli's the same year her startup collapsed. She came home crushed. Blamed her team. Blamed the market. Blamed the city. I listened. Held her. Poured wine. Told her it was not her fault. The next morning, I wrote a check to save a restaurant I loved. It was 2 weeks from shutting its doors. I spent late nights on calls with the architect. Weekends sketching layouts on napkins with Michael. I negotiated vendor contracts. Pushed the city for zoning and parking approvals. None of that ever made it into her version of our life. She told people I dabbled in hospitality, like I ran a novelty food stand. Cute. Harmless. Easy to dismiss. Do you know how that made me look? She said finally, slowing down. Like I did not even know my own husband. Like I built everything and you were just lurking. I raised an eyebrow. Lurking. She nodded. Present, but quiet. Undermining me without saying a word. I shook my head slowly. No. I was just standing where I always had been. She just never turned around to look. I let out a short laugh. Not because it was funny, but because the whole thing was upside down. You think I undercut you? I said. You let everyone believe I had no clue what was going on. The truth is, you were the one who had no clue about me. That landed hard. I could tell. It was never about business. It was not about the dinner or the looks around the table. What cut her was realizing I had depth she never bothered to explore. I backed your promotion, I said. I showed up when you needed me. I smiled when you needed a backdrop. Tonight was not about me showing off. It was about you finally seeing the version of me that does not revolve around your career. She did not answer right away. She walked to the kitchen island, picked up her phone, stared at it, then set it down again. I just wish I was not caught off guard, she muttered. I leaned back in my chair. So do I. Difference is, I have been caught off guard for years. I just learned how to smile through it. She looked at me then. Really looked. Like someone staring at an old book they owned but never opened. What else do I not know? She asked. There was no edge this time. No sarcasm. Just a hollow sound. I took another sip of bourbon. Enough to remind you I was never meant to be your sidekick. She turned, walked down the hall, and shut the bedroom door without another word. For a long time, I had lived behind her curtain. Quiet. Reliable. Always there. That night, the curtain moved, and she did not like the cold air that came with it. She read the message 3 times before locking her phone and tossing it face down on the table. One sentence. That was all it took. Did not know your husband was that Carter. Wow. No emoji. No explanation. Just implication. The text came from someone who had been her intern the year before. Smart kid. Eager. Apparently sharper than she ever gave him credit for. She did not respond. What was she supposed to say? That she never asked what I did with my time. That she assumed my name just sounded impressive on paper. Instead, she powered through the week like nothing cracked. Perfect slides. Sharp jackets. Meetings stacked back to back. Buzzwords poured out smoothly. Scaling. Cross-functional alignment. Thought leadership. But the crack was there. She felt it when people looked at her a second longer than usual. When someone paused before talking to me at company events. When voices dropped after she walked past. Then came the meeting with her boss. No small talk. No warm-up. He motioned for her to sit and opened a folder. We are entering early discussions with the Donatelli group, he said. Nothing official yet. Non-disclosure stage. But your husband may be involved. She blinked. He is not. We do not talk business. He is not part of this. Her boss raised a hand, calm but firm. Maybe he should be. She tried to laugh. He is more private than I am. I did not even know until that dinner. His eyebrow lifted slightly. That look. Quiet. Reflective. Disappointed. That is surprising, he said. She hated that tone. He closed the folder and folded his hands. You are excellent at your job. No one doubts that. But perception matters. People want clarity. And when your own team wonders if your husband is funding their favorite places, and you seem unaware, it makes them question what else you might be missing. She straightened her back. Are you questioning my leadership? No, he said. Your communication. It is different. The rest of the meeting was routine. Updates. Timelines. Nods. But she walked out carrying something new. Doubt. That night, she came home angry. Not loud anger. Controlled anger. The kind that simmers. She walked into the living room with her heels still on and stood there like she was waiting for a cue. You could have warned me, she said. I looked up from my book. About what? Donatelli? The board? The talks? I slipped a bookmark into the page. I did not think you cared about that part of my life. She narrowed her eyes. Do not act smug. I am not, I said. I am being consistent. She paced, arms crossed. Do you know how it looks? Like I do not even know who I married. I met her gaze. Do you? She stopped cold. What is that supposed to mean? It means you spent 7 years telling people I was low-key, into restaurant stuff, while you chased every public milestone you could find. Now people realize I have been in rooms you never entered, and suddenly you are uncomfortable. She walked toward me slowly, picking each word carefully. I am not embarrassed, she said. I am blindsided. Same feeling, I replied. Different lighting. Her jaw tightened. So this is payback for celebrating my promotion? No, I said. This is me existing in the same world as you. That was what she hated most. Not because it was unfair, because it was true. For years, she had shaped a story. Rising executive. Polished life. Supportive but invisible husband. And I let it happen. I sat at charity tables as the +1. Smiled for photos. Stayed quiet when silence was easier. Until it was not. I used to offer to take photos at her team dinners. I waited in the car during award ceremonies. I paid for sponsorships without putting my name anywhere near them. But that changed. Now I was the topic. Now the name she skipped over in company bios was getting circled in meeting rooms. Now the balance tilted toward me. And for the first time, she realized she was not the one steering the story anymore. It was one of those charity galas where the wine never stops flowing and the compliments come even faster. Some fundraiser for coastal preservation or inner-city art programs. I honestly could not remember which. What I did remember was her name printed on the program, tucked between committee co-chair and marketing visionary. She looked perfect. She always did. Clean lines. Confident smile. Champagne glass in hand. But her eyes kept moving. She scanned the room like someone afraid she might miss herself. I stood near the silent auction table, pretending to study a signed basketball I had no interest in buying, when someone tapped my arm. Still keeping a low profile. A woman said, smiling like she already knew the ending. I turned. It was Karen, one of her former agency co-workers. The same woman who once joked about my wife collecting resumes like she was casting a television show. I gave a polite smile. Still trying. Karen took a sip of her drink and leaned closer, like this was less gossip and more caution. She has been different lately, she said, especially since Ryan joined the team. There it was again. That name. Ryan. I had heard it too often to ignore. On speakerphone calls she thought I tuned out. In casual comments dropped at dinner. Ryan thinks we should push the lifestyle angle. Ryan nailed the pitch. Ryan says the Paris campaign defines the brand. Always followed by a light laugh. The kind meant to sound harmless. Ryan was the one who gave the toast at her promotion dinner. The same man who laughed hardest when she made that joke about me being there for free food. I kept my voice neutral. Sounds like he is well-liked. Karen's smile faltered, just for a second. He is, she said. With the team. Especially with her. She hesitated, then continued. Maybe it is nothing. But I have known her a long time. The way she talks about him now, that is how she used to talk about you. Back when your name still had excitement in it. She lifted her glass slightly. When the shine wears off, people tend to look for new mirrors. Then she walked away, leaving behind her perfume and that sentence hanging in the air like a flare. I did not confront anyone. I did not react. I watched. Across the room, my wife laughed too loudly with her hand resting on Ryan's shoulder. She leaned in close. Too close. It was the same kind of closeness she used to save for me at events like this. Back before I became an accessory. Something inside me cooled. Not anger. Not yet. More like stillness. A quiet shift. Like an elevator dropping a floor faster than expected. On the drive home, pieces started lining up. The late-night messages she flipped face down when I walked into the room. The last-minute schedule changes. The new perfume, she said, boosted her confidence. The way she stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings. Slowly at first. Then completely. And Ryan. Always nearby. In stories. In group photos. Never front and center, but always within reach. I did not say anything that night. Instead, I started paying attention. Her office had recently moved into one of the buildings I owned. I leased it to a small agency years earlier. She said the space was temporary. Affordable. Convenient. What she did not remember was that I owned the building. And what she never asked was what else came with it. The hallways had security cameras. Installed years ago during renovations for insurance reasons. They were never removed. Never shut off. That was when curiosity turned into intention. I had played the quiet husband long enough. The man who smiled through public jokes and private exclusions. Now I was not just observing. I was waiting. I was not trying to catch her. Not at first. It started with a moment. Driving home one night, while she spoke on the car's hands-free system. Her words were corporate and empty, but her tone was not. It was soft. Familiar. Lightly playful. The same tone she used to reserve for me before I faded into the furniture. Then I remembered the building. A 3-story commercial space I bought in 2016 when the market dipped. I leased the second floor to her firm months ago after she insisted the location made sense for her new team. She called it temporary. Said they would move once things stabilized. She never asked who owned it. She forgot what else I managed. What else I maintained. What else I saw. The cameras were not there to spy. They were standard. One above the stairwell. One near the elevator. One down the main hall leading to her office. Late that night, after she went to bed, I logged into the security system. Not angry. Just ready to stop being invisible. There was nothing frantic in my hands. No shaking. No panic, just quiet and a question I was not ready to say out loud. I already knew what I would see. The first clip was stamped Thursday night, 11:17 post-meridium. Two figures entered the frame, one tall and wide-shouldered, the other slim, unmistakable in the way she moved. My wife walked in heels the same way most people walk barefoot. Confident, balanced, at ease. The camera had no sound, only motion. Near the stairwell, he reached out and touched her elbow. Not accidental, not quick. She did not pull away. She leaned into him. The next clip loaded automatically. Same night, 11:31 post-meridium. They walked out together. Her hair was down. She never wore it that way at the office unless she was heading somewhere personal. His jacket was off, slung over one shoulder like a man who expected to be there late. The hallway was empty, but they moved like privacy no longer mattered. I scrolled forward through the week. Same pattern. Late arrivals. Lingering exits. Always just the two of them. Always too close for coworkers. There was no kiss. No obvious moment you would point to and say, there it is. That was what unsettled me most. This was not careless. Not sloppy. Not a drunk mistake or a lipstick stain. It was careful. Quiet. Rehearsed. Which meant it had been happening for a while. I downloaded the clips and saved them to a private folder. Each one dated. Labeled. There were 8 videos in total. 8 confirmations that the woman who once begged me to attend her office holiday party now closed her door late at night to sit across from another man. A man who laughed louder than I did. A man who appeared in her stories more than I had in months. A man who knew the version of her I had been missing. She had no idea I knew, and I did not plan to tell her. Not yet. I copied everything onto a small flash drive. I marked it with a red dot. No label, just the mark. Then I slid it into the back corner of my desk drawer. She thought she knew my life. Thought I was into restaurants and renovations. She told people I dabbled in real estate too, like it was a hobby. I do not dabble. I document. And then I wait. Not to accuse. Not to beg. To decide how the truth would surface and who would be watching when it did. A week later, she kissed my cheek as we walked into the restaurant. Light. Automatic. Performed for the coworkers trailing behind us. Like she could still play the role of devoted wife when it helped her image. I let her. Let her believe she was in control. Let her think I was the accessory again. Let her assume the spotlight was still hers. She called it a spontaneous dinner. Said it was good networking. Bridging professional circles. She did not realize I chose the guest list. She did not question why I asked for the mezzanine room. She did not wonder why Paul personally opened the door and hugged me like family. I watched her face when she saw the setup. Fresh orchids on every table. Private wait staff. Menu cards printed with each guest's name. Wines that did not appear anywhere on the public list. Pairings designed just for that night. Her boss looked impressed. Her assistant whispered, "Your husband really knows how to host." Even Ryan smiled. Relaxed. Confident. Like a man who believed everyone else was 3 steps behind. Dinner went perfectly. She was glowing. Too comfortable. Complimenting dishes I had chosen. Laughing a little too hard at Ryan's jokes. Touching his arm now and then like no one would notice. I noticed. Everyone noticed. Just before dessert, I stood up. "I need to check on something with Paul," I said. She barely looked up. Too busy talking through next quarter projections. In the service hallway, I pulled out my phone. One message. Play the clip. Less than a minute later, the lights in the mezzanine dimmed slightly. Not enough to cause alarm. Just enough to signal attention. Then the back wall came alive. Black and white footage. A hallway. Familiar. Our building. No sound. Time stamp glowing in the corner. She froze mid-sentence. At first, they thought it was some security demo. Maybe a presentation. Something planned. Then the figures appeared. 2 people walking late at night. One man. Tall. Broad. One woman. The silhouette was unmistakable. The stride familiar. Then Ryan's hand settled on her lower back. Gentle. Lingering. Personal. She did not step away. She leaned in. Another clip played. Different night. Same hallway. Her fingers brushed his tie. His mouth hovered near her temple. Her lips pressed against his cheek. Not a greeting. Something slower. Something chosen. The room stopped breathing. No one moved. Forks hung in the air. Glasses untouched. The projector shut off quietly. No music. No announcement. Just silence. She sat frozen, face drained of color, lips parted like someone who had just stepped into empty space and realized there was no ground below. Ryan's eyes shot toward the exit. And for the first time all night, the story was no longer hers to control. I went back to my chair without saying a word. No shouting. No pointing fingers. Just sitting down and being there. She finally spoke. Barely. "What is this?" she asked. I took a slow drink of wine. A reminder that cameras are not only for protection. Sometimes they are for understanding. She looked around the table, searching for help. Nobody met her eyes. Her boss slid his plate forward, his face locked tight. Her assistant looked like she might throw up. Ryan cleared his throat, but stayed silent. She leaned toward me and whispered, "You planned this." I gave her a small, cold smile. Of course I did. She wanted me visible. She got exactly that. But this was not support. This was truth. Served one course at a time until nothing was left but the remains of the image she worked so hard to build, and the one thing she could never stand. Being fully seen. I did not need to raise my voice. The room spoke for me. By Monday morning, the damage had a name. Not scandal. Not affair. Something softer. Sharper. Reputational risk. At 9:07 in the morning, a major client called her firm and pulled out of a deal that had been weeks away from closing. No discussion. No follow-up. Just a voicemail left with client relations. "We are reconsidering the partnership due to recent events and concerns about internal culture." It took 38 minutes for the message to make its way up and land in her inbox. Her assistant forwarded it with a short subject line. Urgent client issue. She did not open it right away. Her stomach still had not settled since Saturday night. By 11:15, she was in her boss's office. Door shut. No warm-up. He did not raise his voice. That would have been easier. Instead, he leaned back and said, "You know what clients dislike more than surprises?" She swallowed. Being surprised in public. "It was a private dinner," she said. He nodded. "A very loud private dinner. That video is already in multiple partner chats. Do you know how that happens?" She stayed quiet. They did not talk about the relationship. They did not need to. Embarrassment was the issue. "You will stay on your current accounts," he said evenly. "But let us pause any discussion about moving you forward for now. Let things calm down." It was not advice. The promotion they hinted at. Executive director. The one she assumed was locked in. Gone. She walked out of the office holding her posture together, but every step sounded heavier. Emails stopped coming with urgency. Fewer people included her in conversations. Her assistant, once glued to her side, started shifting attention toward the vice president of strategy. The woman my wife used to dismiss as painfully safe. The distance did not come all at once. It arrived in looks. In quiet rooms. In pauses where she once led. As for Ryan, he was transferred. Effective immediately. Human Resources sent a short message. He would be moving to a regional division in Phoenix. They wished him well. No farewell lunch. No flowers. No mention in the weekly meeting. He was gone before noon. She did not call him. Did not message him. Did not ask why. She already knew. At home, I said nothing. She did not either. She walked in, dropped her bag harder than necessary, and stared at the coat rack like it might explain things. I watched her from the kitchen. She stood there for a long time. Then she said quietly, "I built all of this." I took a sip of coffee. Glass structures look solid until the light hits them wrong. She spun toward me. "What is that supposed to mean?" "Exactly what it sounds like." "Are you enjoying this?" she asked, eyes frantic as everything slid out from under her. I stayed calm. "You thought I was just watching. Turns out I had a better view." She shook her head. "You are acting like I am the bad one." "No," I said. "You just forgot the cameras were rolling." She looked like she might scream or cry or run. She did none of it. She sat down and pressed her fingers into her temples, like the pain was not just in her head. She was learning something I learned years ago. When your image is everything, it does not break all at once. It cracks when people stop seeing you the same way. That night, the house was quiet on purpose. No television. No music. Just the low hum of the dishwasher and the soft creak of the old couch when she sat beside me. No jokes. No defenses. No clever spins. Just silence. "I never meant to humiliate you," she said, barely audible. I stared ahead. "But I did," she added. I felt her eyes searching me, looking for softness, for a thread she could pull to rewind time. Before the jokes. Before Ryan. Before the hallway footage. Before everything came apart in public. And for the first time, I did not reach for that thread. "You know why?" she said quietly. "I never stopped loving you." I finally turned toward her. Her makeup was gone. Just her face. Tired. Tight. Honest in a way I had not seen in years. "Is that what you call this?" I asked. "Love." She flinched. Not dramatically. Just a small break at the corner of her eye. I lost myself, she said. I kept climbing, and I could not stop. She paused, like saying the next part out loud would make it real. And I stepped on you to get higher. I nodded once. You did. She reached for me, her hands shaking, and laid her fingers over mine. We can fix this, she said. Tell me what to do. I will do anything. I stood up. She did not let go right away. Her hand stayed there like she thought standing meant I was leaving for good. There is nothing to fix, I said. Calm. Steady. Finished. You broke it when you decided I did not matter. Her voice cracked. You matter more than anyone. Too late. It was not that I stopped loving her. That would have been simple. What died was belief. The quiet belief that she saw me, that she respected me, that she valued me for more than what I added to her image. That belief did not explode. It dissolved. Slowly. Silently. Until there was nothing left to hold. She stood up too, panic creeping in. Please, she said. We can go to counseling. We can travel. I will leave the firm. I already filed. I nodded. 2 weeks ago. Her breath caught. No announcements, I added. No headlines. Just paperwork. Like everything else you ignored until it showed up in front of witnesses. Her knees gave a little. She sat back down. You did not even tell me, she whispered. Why would I? I said. You stopped asking what I was doing a long time ago. I left her there in the dim living room, staring at the floor like it might offer directions back to a version of me she thought still existed. There was no map, no reset, just reality. I was not being cruel. I was finished. She built her life on image and assumed I would always stay just outside the frame. She never noticed when I stepped out of it completely. It was a Wednesday. Rain was expected, but the night stayed dry enough that the valet kept the umbrellas tucked away. I was not planning to stay long. Just dinner with Paul. A bottle of Brunello. A quiet talk about a new investment going in 2 blocks south. Nothing dramatic. Then she walked in. She had not changed much. Same sharp blazer. Same heels with the red soles she once said made her feel powerful. Hair pinned back. Clean. Controlled. Always controlled. She moved to the host's stand with her phone in hand, like the room did not matter. But I saw it. That small catch in her breath when Paul's nephew, now working the evening shift, smiled and said, Mr. Carter's table? She froze. Just long enough for him to notice. No, she said quickly. I am not with him. He nodded. He understood. He did not offer her the mezzanine. That was my space. Instead, he led her to a small table near the kitchen door, close enough to hear dishes, far enough from the windows to feel tucked away, invisible. From above, I watched, not with pride, not with bitterness, with clarity. She sat straight, scrolling her phone like it could shield her from the quiet. Ordered wine, tried to look unbothered, but her eyes kept lifting, searching. She did not see me at first. The mezzanine sits behind glass and shadow, built for privacy. But I saw her the moment she entered. Paul had already texted me. When her entree came and went untouched, she finally looked up. Our eyes met for a second. She stiffened, smoothed her napkin, lifted her shoulders like armor. I did not wave. I did not send a drink. I did not call her over. I raised my glass. That was all. She did not return it. Just looked down and stared at the empty chair across from her like it was accusing her of something. Maybe she hoped I would walk over, offer a seat, say it was not too late. But this was not her stage anymore. For years, she shaped the story. Polished executive, perfect couple, supportive husband with quiet hobbies and no spotlight. I was the footnote, the safe place, the background. And now she dined beneath me. Literally. Paul joined me with espresso and a quiet look. Should I move her? He asked. I shook my head. No, she is fine where she is. He nodded and left me with the check and the silence. When I stood to go, she did not look up again. She did not need to. She understood. I never chased her spotlight. I built the stage she stood on. And when it cracked under her feet, I simply watched from above.